Those who can handle their own fires can handle others too. We'll be talking about this more in this episode of Karma Cards. Hi everyone, welcome to this week's Karma Cards. Therese here. I'm so happy to meet with you this week. When this message goes out, the full moon in Aries will have happened. That was on October 20th. And that's a culmination point right there. Now, full moons are all about doing the release work. So all up until the full moon, we're focusing on what we're trying to draw in. And after the full moon, we're releasing. So it's actually a really beautiful time to go deeper into what are you ready to let go of? What do you want to be done with? What are you ready to say, I've learned the lesson here, I got the point, and I'm ready to move on. And that's what you should be focusing on, is how can I let this go? And forgiveness work, and a really simple one is and I'm going to mispronounce this because I always do, but the Ho'oponopono, I'll have to write it. I'm going to put it right here because I can't say it. This is a forgiveness prayer. It's, I'm sorry, please forgive me, I love you, thank you. I'm sorry, please forgive me, I love you, thank you. And it's just a simple prayer that you can say over and over again to help with doing the release work. Because any effort towards it actually starts the process. And that brings me to this week's message in Karma Cards, which is about the will. And the will is this is the fire I was talking about in the beginning of the video. So as the Tibetans would say, the will is the fiery action that forms matter. And humans have an incredible will, and we have an incredible gift in this universe, which is one of the ultimate laws, which is the law of free will. So your will cannot be overtaken by anything. You must agree. You must agree to anything that happens to you. So when something does happen to us, there's some sort of agreement there. It can be conscious or unconscious, but it still has to be a belief, like a fiery feeling, a fiery energy or fiery action, aka a belief that this thing has power over me. And converse, this thing has no power over me, which is probably one of the greatest statements you can use when you are claiming back your own free will. I read this amazing quote, which says, the human will is capable of overcoming everything, including karma. Its power is developed without limits. So let me break that little piece down because I feel like that's the crux. The human will is capable of overcoming anything, including karma. Now, how do you overcome karma? Well, if you've heard me talk about it before, forgiveness, baby, that's how you overcome. Forgiveness breaks the cycle of karma. So karma it's really interesting because I know when I first started hearing about karma, I often thought about it as, something negative that you do that ends up coming back to you. But karma is really just a beautiful singular word for the golden rule, which is anything you put out into the universe comes back to you. So it includes good karma, not just the karma we're so used to hearing about, which kind of denotes bad karma. So isn't this interesting? Because anything we put out comes back to us. And some things, right? There's another quote that says, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. And so sometimes what happens is we can get karmically entwined into a situation through our own good intentions of being helpful or, a lot of saving usually is a good intention that leads to karmic entanglement, right? So karmic entanglement is something we need to understand is not always propagated by negative behavior or negative intention on our part. sometimes the best intentions get us tangled up with something that we probably should have or could have allowed to pass us by. So just know, though, that karma is not a life sentence. Karma is simply a consequence. Sometimes good, sometimes not so good. But it's our will to be entangled with the karma, whether we continue to experience it over and over again, whether we continue to have to learn the lessons of any mistake we made. It's our will to overcome it that can set us free. And usually when we want to overcome something, that there's usually a solution or a remedy that's available to us. So that's something I like to teach my clients is remember that problem is always born with solution, and that we have to turn our attention from problem to solution to see the answer. It's right there. But it's this willingness to look at solution. So it's an interesting message that the team has for us. Yeah, last week was about forgiveness. We're still in that. Clearly, there's more to it here. But they want you to understand that nothing is greater than your will. Nothing is greater, according to to many ancient texts, the human will is capable of overcoming everything. Overcoming everything. It's all inside of us. And so this week, I just want you to resonate with that message that no matter what's put in your path, you have the power to overcome it through your desire, which is your fiery will in action. All right, let's do some karma cards. Those who are new to karma cards, let me quickly go over it with you. I have the planets, signs of the zodiac, and the houses of astrology representing 3 different decks. And I've already asked my team in spirit, what's the message you have for us this week? And I have 2 sets of answers. One in red, which are action related, and a set in blue, which are outcome related. And all you have to do to play is tune into yourself and decide, what do you need right now? Do you need some action related guidance, or do you want to know outcomes over the next week? And of course, you can always choose both. While you are intuitively deciding, let me tell you the timing for this reading. This reading is for October 19th through October 26th. And the flavor of this reading, we have the planet Neptune, dreamy, spiritual, sometimes a little out of touch with reality, a little over idealizing, or a little nebulous. Like there's usually when Neptune appears, it's not really a cut and dry answer. There's always layers to it. There's always these non-physical, mystical, subconscious layers, or a more creative or imaginative approach. In the sign of Aquarius, which comes up a lot in readings right now because this represents the time period that we are in the 8th house of transformation and mystery and shared resources. All right, for those who are choosing action, your spiritual action at this time is to inspire others with your vision as a life or death issue. I feel like we have had this recently. I feel like this exact phrase keeps coming up. Man, life or death. Inspire others with your vision as a life or death issue. Like 3 things are coming forward thanks to this Neptune card. But 1, there is no time. 2, time is running out. Those statements are not as paradoxical as they seem. There is no time, but time is running out. That's that life or death issue feeling. It's like there is no more time to wait, right? It's the time is now. If you're wondering when the time is now. Inspire others with your vision. Your vision is coming from Aquarius, which always talks about the future. So what's going to inspire others? A vision of what you don't want or a vision of what you do want? People need to hear it. They need to hear it now. There's no time but now. And also time is running out, but there is no time. So that's a little Alice in Wonderland-y feel for you, thanks to Neptune. Mental action. Be prepared to sacrifice for what's new and different about getting and using power. Be prepared to sacrifice for what's new and different about getting and using power. Okay, so the getting and using power part comes directly in contact with the will, and your will, as I've just discussed, can overcome anything. What's new and different about getting and using power, and be prepared to sacrifice for it, means there is, as with every spiritual principle, there's something that has to be let go for something to be gained. And in this case, it is the past or the way things have been done. In order for things to move forward, and you're going to be asked, or we are all being asked really, to step into our power in a new and different way, to really claim it back. This isn't something that's comfortable, right? Like the idea of having to let something go to move forward, that puts a lot of us outside of our comfort zone. But remember, where growth happens and real change happens is outside the comfort zone. So yeah, we might not like to hear that. In any case, no matter what the issue is, that we're going to have to sacrifice something for something else, especially for standing in your power. That might be upsetting to hear, that you have to let something go to stand in your power. But what we're letting go is a decaying old paradigm in every sense. The systems, the view, or the outlook on it, all of it's been corrupted. I mean, the fear matrix I talk about sometimes, you guys know, that's been in play for so long that we're just conditioned to it. Some of us more than others. Some of us sort of at a young age were like, this is weird, like something's wrong here. And most of us, I think, had that feeling that just something just doesn't jive, but we never could really put our finger on it because it wasn't just one thing. It was the whole operational energy around us. And to wake up to that is a little bit jarring. I mean, on one hand, you already knew. You do. You already know. On the other hand, waking up to the reality of it is jarring and upsetting, and yet also freeing at the same time, because it was not a great system. It was horrible. Horrible. It's a horrible system. And so we have to let that go. We have to let it go to move into higher energy, better energy. We can't take 3D with us into 4D. We must let it go. And so that's that sacrifice, is like, it's kind of like, okay, the metaphor that's coming through is like an abused animal is coming through. So I see this like abused animal, like a cat or a dog, who was raised in abuse, and it gets saved and is taken to a shelter, but all it knows is abuse. And so that's all it expects from the world now. And it is actually quite jarring for the animal to experience the lack of abuse, because we get, they're conditioned to it by now. And even though they don't want it, they're so used to experiencing it that experiencing kindness is almost upsetting at first. Like they're bracing and waiting for the attack that never comes, which creates that paranoia, and it takes them a while to get through that. That's humanity right now. We're in that spot. We're still experiencing some of the abuses, but we're starting to see it move away from it. And again, there's this fear of letting go of what is known. And our power, and in some cases, and for some people, being in their power is really unusual. It's not a state that they've been in very much. And that can create that sense of discomfort. So here's the thing. It's like some of what we're experiencing, some of what we're feeling it's not registering fully what's happening, because if you're standing in your power for the first time and you haven't really done that before, that can feel really threatening, vulnerable, and uncomfortable, making you think that maybe this is wrong. And yet it's probably the healthiest you've ever been. Just like leaving an abusive situation, it's going to make you feel vulnerable, unprotected, and scared, and yet you're probably in the safest place you've ever been. I hope that metaphor makes sense. All right, the physical action at this time, yielding, is the only way to use an unconventional way and use other people's resources. So yielding is surrender. Surrendering is the only way to use an unconventional way on other people's resources. And I feel like, again, this is like surrendering to the understanding of what has been going on. And I do mean it, it's so layered. And I keep saying this to you. There's a personal meaning around this. There is an external world point to this, but it's really like you taking it in. Where do you need to surrender? Where do you need to let go so that you can use an unconventional way? Many times we don't see the unconventional way until we've surrendered. So this, again, it goes right back to you. Until you surrender the control matrix, you don't see the way forward because you're so used to what's been given to us. And until you let that go, do you see this unconventional way of moving forward, which allows us to use other people's resources? And that might mean other people's knowledge, other people's strength, other people's courage, bravery, finances. It can mean any of that. So now let's look at outcomes with Neptune and Aquarius in the 8th house of transformation. So the spiritual outcome at this time is the idealization of genius to experiment with personal power. Say that again. The idealization of genius to experiment with personal power. So again, idealization both is like, what's the highest form of genius? That's one interpretation of idealization. Another is almost like making it bigger than it is, right? So making your personal power almost more unattainable or harder to achieve because you've blown it out of proportion, like you've made it bigger than it needs to be. Both of those things can happen in this time period. Again, with the Neptune influence, readings like this aren't cut and dry. They're so layered. And it is like Neptune really would describe the book Alice in Wonderland. Is exactly. So imagine being Alice in the underground and you're talking to the caterpillar right now. And it's like everything that is isn't and everything that isn't is. And they both mean they're both holding truth. It's that same thing. So on one hand, it is that highest ideal of your personal power. On the other hand, stop blowing your personal power out of proportion or making it a bigger deal. They're both. It's both. Mental action at this time. Confusion regarding the discovering of the mysteries of life. So the deeper you go into any kind of spiritual truth, you always run into paradox, and especially in the third density. This realm is the most difficult. The fact that you're still here and you're still trying is a sign of just how awesome of a warrior, light warrior that you are. It's tricky here. Not only do we have false things that invert truth, but then we have the mirror realm, which is what the 3D is, where it's literally like you projecting out onto something only so you can experience yourself happening at the same time. So the more you try to go deeper into mystery, the more you activate the veil of confusion, which is one of the two veils covering this realm. We've got the veil of forgetting, which provides us with instant amnesia, so we can't remember who we were, what we knew, why we're here again, like what are we doing? None of that, even though it's all in us. Can't seem to like remember it. And then the veil of confusion, which is the closer you get to the truth, the more convoluted it will seem. And they're saying confusion regarding the discoveries of the mystery of life. So they're telling you you're going to get really close, and the closer you get, the more this veil activates. Why does it do that? It does that so that you will reach deeper inside and make a choice from an authentic place. If you can't get the answer from the outside world, which you can't, if something else outside of you can't tell you what the ultimate truth is, you will have to go inside. And what you find inside, you will have to decide if that is truth and if you can trust it. And I know that the people who do that work, who go inside and choose to trust, they create great expansion in their life. That doesn't mean it isn't scary. Every single person I've ever worked through self-doubt is terrified of it, because what if you're wrong? But are you? So again, I'm going to give you a very Neptunian answer. Maybe you're right. Maybe you're wrong. Maybe it's both. But you have to decide. And that's actually the whole point, is to make the choice yourself. All right, physical action at this time. Sacrifice resulting from the eccentricity of a major change. Now, this could mean what's happening in the outside world, which is getting crazier and crazier by the minute. And as I remember listening when I was learning about like the history, the ancient texts about ascension, they talk about that the time period leading up to ascension is a sort of end time madness. So, and if you think about it, if you step back from humanity and you think about what is ending, well, the dark timeline is ending. The control structure, the negative paradigm that was placed on us for so long, that we were all born into. We have no other reference other than this darkness that we didn't even really know was there until we started seeing it. And if you haven't really seen it yet, there's a lot of evidence of it. So that's what's dying. And the closer we get to ascending in energy, that can't continue. But they can kind of go out in a blaze, if you will. And they're losing the more they lose control, the more they lose their minds, and the more extreme and crazy things can become. And that's the end time madness as we get closer to the big event coming. So we might be experiencing sacrifice. You might already be experiencing sacrifice in your life. And it is resulting from the eccentricity of a major change. You don't need to despair. It's actually all known. It was known by our soul before we got here that, yeah, there's going to be turbulence on the way up. But we can and we will handle this. We were specifically chosen for this period. We had the qualifications to be here, to handle it, to write it, and to create what comes next. And what comes next, I do believe, is going to be so worth this. It's so worth this. It's like labor pains, right? So if you can equate end time madness to labor pains, you know, the pain, the contractions get harder and stronger the closer that birth is about to happen. It's painful. It is sometimes, just terribly excruciating. But what comes next makes it all worth it. And it's almost like those pains are sort of a distant memory really quickly after they happen because of what comes next. So even though the readings right now seem to be talking about this like heavy energy that we have to let go of, the contractions, the change, the intensity, all these orbs floating around me. I don't know. Watch the video again if you haven't noticed. There's like orbs like floating around. It's crazy. The energy is getting more intense, but remember, we have a lot of support. We have our own teams in spirit. We have those in the astral holding space for us, helping with this transition. And people are noticing that you can feel them more and more, and take a moment and just feel it for yourself. We have each other. And most importantly, you have that beautiful connection to all that is. And if you go inside and feel your truth, I think you're going to be really happy with what you find in there. So with that, sending you so much love. Mwah. Thank you for watching. Subscribe now and hit the notification bell so that you know the next time I release a new video. Until then, stay magical.